Sadie's Lackey and Larry Dixon, and we're going to talk about some of their best-selling books and series. The Valdemar books are perennial favorites for members of the Science Fiction Book Club. Why do you think people are really drawn to the series?
Well, actually, my agent has a very interesting article on his website about long-running series, and he feels that when you have a author who has created a series that has a very well-built background and good characters in it, people like coming back to it because it's like coming back to a good party or a favorite restaurant or your old neighborhood.
The magic system in Valdemar, it's very compelling. So can you talk a little bit about how you created the Herald Companion partnership?
This is one of those things where it's a little embarrassing because everybody who has a really bad idea for any kind of fantasy series generally comes running up to you and saying, "Oh, I had this fantastic dream." But it is true that the whole series got its genesis from a dream that I had. A bond between a human and some other creature is a very, very long-running meme in fantasy literature. It goes back, well, goodness, it goes back to the ancient Greeks. So I certainly cannot take any credit for having developed that in the first place. I just stood on the shoulders of giants, as they say.
Both of you have worked on The Mage Wars and Darian's Tale, which feature griffins and owls. So which came first, the books or your work with raptor rehabilitation? So, and where would someone who wants to get more involved in that line of work go to?
Well, I'll go backwards first. If you're going to get involved in falconry, the place to go is the North American Falconry Association. They are the parent organization for all falconers in North America, and they have a very good online site. They can get you referred to a falconer and start you on your apprenticeship. If you're going to get involved with raptor rehab, the place to go is your local Fish and Game or Fish and Wildlife office. They will refer you to rehabbers who will then put you in their apprenticeship program. As to which came first, definitely the interest in raptors came way before we ever put them into the books.
What other projects that you and Larry are currently working on?
Well, the big one is Secret World Chronicles. Larry is my co-editor. He's going to be one of the original two. One of the original members is having to drop out for health reasons. Larry is taking over one of his characters, and he's taking over his editor's position. So, and of course he's doing a lot of art for it.
Well,
so,
yeah.
So that's the big one that we're involved with together right now.
How do you think your writing style has evolved from, you know, the older series that you first started out with and then progressed to your newer ones?
The big thing is now I kind of have to look at a story and say, okay, what haven't I done before?
You're freed up in a way to be more experimental. You've gotten the basics of story sorted out. You've got your technique more or less going, and then you can experiment a bit and just try things new. I'd say one of the big things that have changed about both our writing after all of these, how many, 400,000 or 500,000 books are? Yeah, we got about 80 titles now. Is that the writing is much less nervous, if you will. There's not a tenseness in it of sweating the details because we're new to writing books. Yeah, and we're able to work on some things that probably would have driven us pretty crazy when we were newer writers, but nowadays we know how this will work.
You have a new young adult series called The Shadow Grail. Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yes, that's our young adult series. It's for Tor, but I believe Science Fiction Book Club is picking it up. And it's, while it is set in a boarding school type of situation, it's very American. It is very, very dark. Where we just turned in the second book and we've already started killing off a number of characters.
Wow.
Yes, there will be much destruction and death. It is not cozy, comfy Hogwarts, I can tell you that much. It's more like welcome to the Darwinian school for the survival of the fittest.
You're considered a master bard for members of SFBC, I have to say. And so we'd love to know, where do you come up with all these brilliant ideas and where do you draw your inspiration?
When you are in the habit of coming up with ideas, they come up out of every single everyday situation. You look at something and you say, yes, but what if? And that is, that in fact is what Theodore Sturgeon's master classes were about. He had even a symbol made, which was a Q with an arrow coming out of it, which stood for ask the next question. And it's just a matter of getting into the habit of asking those questions, and the ideas come very, very easily. But it's practice just like anything else.
So speaking about, things that you've been doing for a long time, you are a veteran of Dragon Con.
I was a guest at the first Dragon Con. This is my 247th convention. Been doing this about 30 years.
If the zombie apocalypse were to happen right now, what would you two do?
Well, first of all, we would grab Sheldon and you, and we would go to the hotel kitchen. We would fortify the hotel kitchen because that's where all the food, water, and weapons are. We would take extra care to make sure that we could make a funneling trap into the freezer because zombies do not do well in cold. So we would just funnel the zombies straight into the freezer, freeze them, and then shatter them. We're Mercedes Lackey.
I'm Larry Dixon.
And you can find our books at SFBC.com. That's the Science Fiction Book Club.
One of the best values in reading you can possibly have.